got that from John.
Well, when you're streaming it, everybody expects to be on set.
That's
Well, that's
true.
right, yeah.
That is
Yeah.
true.
Scott, you're not alone. We have the chair of the P&Z in Orange, Connecticut. And they have every meeting is totally televised and everything. They're all set up. And he starts exactly at 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yep, here we are.
There you are.
All right.
Yes.
Okay, are we good? We're good?
Yeah, good.
All right, okay. Welcome, everybody. This is the POCD Core Committee and also the Planning Commission, here we're calling that, special meeting, right? Yes, a hybrid of the meeting. It's December 19th, 2024, 7 p.m. almost precisely. We're in room 209. And to run down who is here, it's myself. I'm Scott Dale, I'm the chair. Linda Taylor, who's a member of the Planning Commission, and Mark Lowengar, who is a regular member of the Planning Commission. We also have Tony Capiello, who is the chair of the Conservation Commission, Kurt Timmerman, who is the chair of the Zoning Commission, and Jim Fisher, who is the chair of the Economic Development Commission. And who else do we have here today?
Frank Fish from BFJ Planning.
Okay,
And Emily Tolbert from BFJ Planning.
all right, very good.
So we got somebody else hiding here too.
Oh.
Would you like to announce
Laura.
yourself?
Sure, I'm Laura Barkowski, the Land Use Director.
There we are, all right.
It's Jim.
You just weren't on the list here, that's why I didn't think of that. Okay, yeah, so.
I'm not, am I?
So the minutes, we have minutes from October 22nd. I'm not even sure exactly how we go about improving these with the hybrid meeting, but anybody have anything of note to edit or comment or otherwise regarding these minutes?
I have a question for clarification, lines 192 and 193. It talks about the condition of Wisconsin Middle School and the committee noting that the school was rebuilt. I'm not quite sure what that means, because Wisconsin wasn't rebuilt.
Probably my mistake in just confusing the two schools.
Okay, so you think we mean Huckleberry Hill Elementary School there then?
Huckleberry Hill. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay,
It's familiar to us because we were on the phone today with the superintendent. And it was today, was it today?
I think I also wrote.
Yeah.
that's under line 192, replace Wisconsin with Huckleberry Hill.
Right.
Okay. Any other comments, questions?
One thing I just would note, it's very minor, but on line 15, I think I'm still listed as an alternate. I think at that point I was already a regular member, and same applies for
Right.
today's agenda.
Today as
Yeah.
well, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, so 2 points there. Is there a third? Okay, anybody like to make a motion then, with that in mind?
I'll make a motion,
Okay,
approve the minutes
as noted with the two,
with the 2 corrections.
all right, is there a second on
I'll
that?
second. Oh,
Everybody's
Go
jumping?
ahead, Tony.
There we go. Any further discussion on this? If not, ayes?
Aye.
Unanimous, right? Oh, no, you were,
Abstain.
okay, Linda's abstaining for that. We have to approve the minutes for this 21st, I guess we would, all right? 21st was the public workshop itself, there's a bit there. Okay, so. Actually, there isn't a bit there. There's very little there. It's more in the attachment of what actually took place. Any comments or concerns on that? Thoughts? Or otherwise?
Well, it's nice the way it was collated and put together like this, you know, the dots, the dot graph and everything. Made for interesting reading, because I didn't get a chance to look beyond what I put my own comments on, the boards.
So, anything, any edits otherwise? Should we? If not, anybody want to make a motion? Or do you need more time?
Should I make a motion to accept the minutes of the public workshop number 1, November 21st, 2024?
Is there a second for that?
I'll say. Linda, you can have it.
Thank you.
Go for it, all right. Any further discussion on that? Okay, ayes?
Aye.
There nays? Abstention, Linda, where were you on that?
I was,
Oh, you did?
I said that I got lost.
You were not.
Yeah.
You were
I
on,
was
I
there.
didn't see your hand, I'm sorry, that's why I was asking. All right, thank you. All right. Back to the agenda. Correspondence, did I see that in here? Sorry, I didn't know.
Something
I know I
from
spoke
Joanne
to her.
McMillan? Huh? A letter from Joanne McMillan?
Yeah, I thought that was in your somewhere.
In the packet.
Oh, here it is. Page 19 of the 151. I think she had a specific item in mind that she wanted to cover here.
Mr. Chair, if you would like me to summarize, I've actually worked with her in the past before. She's
That would be
trying
great.
to,
Thank you.
she's trying to initiate more of a native species, native plant species, rules and regulations and policies, both through the zoning commission and also through a town policy. So at town hall properties, we would only be allowed to plant native species. And then additionally, for the zoning regulations, where it right now has it 50% or more native species, she wants it a little bit more intensive. So she has been working with my office, Parks and Rec, Board of Selectmen, Conservation Commission. So I'm sure she will turn around and actually go to each of your 2 commissions again to get letters of support. But since this is an initiative of hers, she would like that to be included in, at least in the discussion for the conservation side of the plan of conservation and development.
Okay.
That's your,
So it's something that as we get to certain parts of the POCD, we want to keep that in mind as part of the. Okay. Thank you for summarizing.
you're welcome.
And who is she exactly? Is she?
She is a master gardener, she's a Brookfield
Oh,
resident.
okay, yeah.
She, could I call her a friend of the Conservation Commission?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
okay.
we've been consulting with her for
Yeah.
several years now.
No, terrific. Okay, good, because that's an interesting comment where, you know, what we've found in the past sometimes is 50% and going higher, you might go higher on that, but I wouldn't go beyond a certain percentage, because sometimes we have our own landscape architecture
Architects.
crew, and they've always told me that it's great to do a good percentage, but sometimes a non-native species is warranted. And you want to leave a little flexibility for that. By the way, I'm not a landscape architect, but I'm relying on our landscape architect, Jeff Rush.
Any further discussion on that? Tony, do you have anything to add on that, by any chance?
Not at the moment, but we
Okay.
have been in the past in discussions with her on this subject, and even to break it down further, you can categorize ground cover, shrubbery, and trees and have different percentages for those. So the devil's in the detail, and we certainly support her efforts to increase the percentages of native plants that are incorporated, in particular, into municipal building projects and commercial projects.
So I guess that's something to take a note as we get to certain aspects, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
that could go in one of our chapters, you know, particularly an open space chapter or sustainability.
Which I think is kind of the last one we'll be working on,
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
Mhm.
yeah,
We'll
I've
be able
saved
to
these
put that
notes
in.
as well.
Okay. Any other further discussion on that matter? If not, we can move on. And then we have, in addition to this agenda, we have an additional agenda. would you guys like to lead the discussion on that?
Yeah, all right. I'm just gonna give an overview of where we are and where we hope we're going. And then when we get to 2C on our agenda there, under community engagement, Emily, give a sort of summary of where we are on interviews with people, just so you know where we are. And we've been trying to make sure that Laura knows all the people we're meeting with. For instance, tomorrow we got 2 more meetings. We met with the school district today. It's interesting here that the police did call you to see if we
Yes,
were
they did.
legitimate, and that's good.
Very thorough.
Yeah, good. So if you turn the page a little bit, the back of the agenda is the timeline, and I thought it would be good to just refresh everybody as to where we are on the timeline. So
First question, are we on time right now?
we are.
Okay.
We're on
Yes.
time. Yeah, and by the way, very conscious of that.
Mhm.
We want to stay on time because it is very important for us to get in. There's 2 big, on the timeline up top, there's 2 purple dots, or circles. We've already done one, that's the first workshop, which you reviewed, you've got the minutes of here. But the second one, we're aiming for April. And so we've got a very good database now, if you will. We've done a lot of, and Laura has listed this, we've done a lot of some key interviews with various groups and various individuals. So we're also starting to write up. You've got Brookfield today already. But there's parts of Brookfield today which will become Chapter 1. We've got the regional setting already, and that's up online now. And planning context, as you can see under 2.1 there, 1, the introduction. That's mostly done. We can't finish that. That's the one chapter that we can't really finish, because we like to say, and it's an introduction chapter, so you like to say in it that, here's how the plan was developed. So there were 2 workshops, and so we've got to be beyond the workshops and the public hearing to actually finish that. But we've already given you the key components of regional setting and other plans in the area. But we'll come back to that chapter sort of after the public hearing, really, and finish. In other words, we'll put in the details of what is the overall vision of the plan, and then how it was developed, and then the regional setting's done, and what other plans say. So we're in a good position there. And also then the second chapter, you can see under phase 3 there, that 3.2 demographics and socioeconomic trends is basically done. So what we hope to give you, and actually Emily will be the prime author of this one, is land use and zoning prior to the January meeting. Emily's almost done with that. And it reminds me to say, I think we're all set for the January 16th meeting, right? That's our next
Thursday,
meeting.
right? Well,
Thursday.
Third Thursday.
Yeah, the third Thursday, January 16th.
Right here.
At 7, right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always like to get that next one in, make sure we're all on the same page there. What we hope to do then is, on each of the meetings that have been set up, we will be giving you chapters ahead of time through Laura, and so that you have chapters to respond to. So I don't want to call it homework, but it's, we need to be very close to you in terms of where you want to go. And if you sense something in a chapter you're not comfortable with, you will be able to respond to us in each of the meetings.
So the process is you write it first and then we comment on it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll write it first
Mhm.
and then send it to
How
Laura.
do you know I'm curious as to how you know what direction to go.
Well,
We
hopefully-
haven't even had any discussions.
Yeah, a couple of
Yeah.
things. Tonight, you'll see that Emily's got a whole set of questions for you.
Yeah.
But also what we're doing, for instance, I don't think we need much more. We met with the school, one school principal, for instance, and he was quite a guy.
The superintendent.
He was I was very impressed. I mean, some some school districts are very cautious, about projections, school district projections, what their student enrollment is. He's an extremely forthcoming guy. I mean, he's very, very helpful to us. And so when we're writing up community facilities chapter, we have the information now. He's told us where to go for the information, and so we'll get that information written up for you. And it will be based partly on today's meeting with him, and also on the data that he sends us. And then we'll try to synthesize that, because we don't want to write, we want the plan to be not an encyclopedia, but something that's, to the point. We'll write that up, and you'll see it before the public does, because we want you to review everything that we do. So each of these chapters will be based on these people that we're meeting with, police department, fire department. We've got meetings set up actually with the first selectman, and we'll be going through these. We'll finish them, I think. They're ongoing, the meetings, but we'll probably finish them largely in February, I would think.
I think by end of January.
Yeah, by end of
on some
January.
of them.
Yeah.
I think some of the ones,
Yeah.
so we will be doing some on like the conservation and open space and those, like the lake commissions and stuff, and those will happen a little bit further along, but so I think where Frank is going is the next chapter that we're planning to deliver to you after land use and zoning is the community facilities chapter and the housing chapter. So for community facilities in particular, we've talked to a lot of stakeholders like the human services director, we've talked to fire, we're talking to police, schools, Parks and Rec, we're talking to all these people. We have a few more planned, and then we're going to also talk to the capital planning committee, and then once we have all of that information in a kind of existing conditions and issues and opportunities, and then we can come and talk to you about them and hear from you what so we're kind of going to report back to you what we've learned.
Okay.
And so generally, like the chapters, for example, the land use and zoning in Brookfield today, we had an existing land use and zoning overview that just described exactly things as they are. It wasn't making any kind of like judgments or anything like that. That's kind of the first part of every chapter is this is what we have here. These are the organizations. These are the people responsible. These are some of the issues we've heard about. And then we can talk about how we're going to address those issues. And those would form goals and recommendations.
Yeah, and then also some of these, as you can see under phase 3 there, you'll see these green lines and some of them overlap. And one of the reasons they're economic development, for instance, you've all met Thomas Madden. He's focusing on that. He'll be meeting with Greg and others and Laura. And then transportation mobility, you met Mark Fricker from our office at the workshop.
Oh, he wasn't there.
Oh, he wasn't there. Oh, I got my workshops confused.
Yep. Evan was there.
Evan was there. Sorry, Evan was at the workshop. And they're going to be working, a man named Mark Fricker in our office will be leading the transportation effort. And he's got, we did show 2 of the slides.
Yeah, he's already done maps.
He developed the slides on transportation. So we've got a lot of information on transportation already, and we're checking that out with, different people. Of course, the police chief, police department, Public Works. So you get a draft of it. But our hope is that by the time we get to that second purple dot, that you'll have a good part of this. You won't have chapter 10, the future land use plan, because we got to get through the workshop first. But you will have the basic chapters done. And for instance, the last one, infrastructure and utilities, we're not just leaving that. We have Ty and Bond on our team, just to remind everybody, there's a civil engineer on the team, and a guy named Joe Canis will be doing some meetings. And by the way, we want to make sure you know all about those meetings. So he'll be developing part of that infrastructure utilities, actually a good part of that chapter. So in other words, it'll be an iterative process, but we think we're organized so that our transportation guy's in charge of transportation chapter, Ty and Bond's in charge of the infrastructure chapter, and we'll be editing them all. And so what you get will be a draft chapter ahead of time, well before the workshop. And then based on your comments, we'll revise those chapters. And then in the workshop, we're hoping that people who come will have had the chance, if they wanted to at least read, at least the chapters they're interested in anyway. And then at the workshop, we'd like to do it so that it'd be set up with round tables, or they don't have to be round tables, they can be, any type of table, but where you can sit around. And for what I call round table discussions. And we would have a resource person at each table. In other words, Mark would come, our transportation guy. Thomas Madden would come, and there may be one, Evan, and there'll be Emily and myself. And then what we love to do, or like to do, is at that workshop, all committee members feel free to sit at one of the tables so that you hear firsthand. And then at the end of the workshop, we ask a spokesperson from the table, could you summarize things? And, we'll have maps out on the table and magic markers and, that kind of thing. So that it'll be a different type of workshop than the auditorium. Mm-hmm. In the high school. We're hoping to have a flat surface and,
Cafeteria,
right.
I think we targeted April 22nd, if I
Yes.
recall.
Right.
correctly,
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
that day.
Yeah.
Going back to what you were saying before, though, you say that the chapters will be done or
Well, the
written.
draft. In other
The
words, the draft will be.
I guess I'm curious as to the process of how you put together a collective vision, that reflects the town, this group here. Without our input, if I'm hearing correctly.
Oh, no. We
Okay.
want, as each of these are done, we want to get I would say any revisions, any input through Laura. And then also, remember that we're going to be meeting with you each month up to the workshop. So we've got meetings with you January, February, March, and then the workshop in April. We won't attempt to do a comprehensive vision till after that workshop, when we try to get into the future land use plan. But you'll see tonight, as Emily's got a whole set of questions for you on land use and zoning. And so that, we're gonna try to very much be, start asking you questions. But I have found in the past that the best way that we like to not leave writing the plan to the end. Because we'd rather have you see the chapters as they're done. So there's no surprises for you at the end. And then it's a back and forth on all our meetings with you. And then the second workshop is aimed at testing out potential options, potential recommendations. I hate to call them recommendations at that point, but the workshop would be these roundtable discussions and then comments afterward. But then after that, we want to have a May meeting with you to go over there'll be nothing to go over what you heard, and then to go over a draft vision, future land use plan, with you, so that that's accomplished before the public hearing. We'd like to have that public hearing, for reasons in June, for reasons that it's easy to get, it's easy to
Public
get.
hearing we put for September.
For September, I'm sorry,
Early
yeah.
September.
Well, I'm sorry, I was confusing that with the housing, in September. So, we don't like to have it in July and August. You could get criticized for, people are away. So it gives us plenty of time over the summer. Everybody
Fits in
can
with
have
our
it.
overall deadline
Yes,
as well.
yeah.
Yeah.
And keep in mind that draft, when we get a draft done, we need to send it to Westcott. They get 65 days to review it. And also, I think I've asked this question before. Yeah, it'd be the planning. Because actually, we were surprised in Newtown. We finished their plan, and the planner called me up, and the planner himself didn't know this. He said, "Oh, legal counsel's just told me, Frank, that there's a legislative council." I
That's why you asked the question.
I said, I thought you have a combined P and Z. I thought the P and Z is And he said,
Oh, I
well,
see.
no, it's not.
Yeah.
The state law says you've gotta send it to whoever your legislative body is. And, I thought here it probably would be the selectmen. But we gotta find out who your legislative body is here. So you've gotta give them, time to review. I think the legislative body may be 35 days, I'm not sure. 35 days. And you gotta give Westcog 65. So it's perfect, they can review it over the summer. Our view here is, we get the draft done, let them review it over the summer. And make any comments they want in the September public hearing, and you got it done. And many times, by the way, Westcog sometimes doesn't, they leave it to you. They'll give you a letter back that's one page, or it might say, this is a local issue, local. Now, on Newtown, they did give us some comments. They were pretty good. I thought they were pretty good comments. One of them was just connecting to a trail system. They weren't major, but they were helpful. We've already incorporated them, so we're basically done, except for that final, adoption meeting in Newtown, which because we didn't know about the Legislative Council, we had to delay from this month to January. The Legislative Council had to have another, but the Legislative Council meeting went fine. And so we just have to make sure if you're and Laura, I'm looking at you, I
She
should
already
find out.
confirmed.
She already confirmed.
She already
It is the
confirmed.
selectmen, right?
It's the select-
So we're meeting with the first selectman. We've got a meeting set up with him
In January.
in January.
January 20th.
22nd.
22nd.
Yeah.
I knew it was around there.
Yeah, so January 22nd. And so, we want to keep in touch because, these are the agencies, you got to send it to them. So that we want to have the selectmen familiar with it. I'm talking in the future now a little
Yeah.
bit, but, and Westcog, they'd be very helpful, I think. Their comments in Newtown were just good, helpful comments, and not too many. So we were able to just adjust the plan, and that was fine. And then, for instance, Newtown, they'll be in a position to adopt in this coming month, January. In the new year, they'll adopt it, and they're all set. So I think having that summer to, you get the summer off in a way, waiting for Westcog and, the selectmen to give you comments, and then public hearing in September. And then we always leave time after the public hearing. If there's need to meet with you, again, if you want changes, we would do that. In Newtown's case, Rob just feels he knows all the changes. So he's giving them to us, and we're just completing the document for adoption in January. So that's the order. I'm sorry to take up a little bit
No, it's good.
of
Yeah.
time, but I wanted to go over the big picture a little bit with you. And I think now I've covered sort of I forgot the survey. So we want later to go over with you draft questions for a survey, because we'd like to get a survey. We've talked about this with you before, and on the time, do we have the survey?
Yeah,
I'm not sure we
June
do. We
It
do.
is. It's on there.
So the survey's on
1.6.
the timeline, right?
1.6.
1.6, and we timed it for January and February. We've got draft questions to discuss with you tonight, and we'd like to get it up online maybe in mid-January, or if we can. And we usually find having it up for 2 or 3 weeks, or we don't like to go too long, because then people, they think, oh, we got plenty of time, and they forget and don't fill it out, or too little time. So we find 2 or 3 weeks, and we need to talk to you about publicizing it, and that type of thing, which you've talked about. So that's the survey, and we'll get to that later on. But I want to give this to Emily to just give you an update on who we've met with so far, so that you get a sense of how we're writing, partly how we're writing these chapters, Scott.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the other idea, just to reiterate Frank's point, these are kind of first draft chapters that we'll get to you. in the coming months, you'll have time to review them before we post them publicly online, and even when they're posted publicly, they're marked as draft, and we're asking for people to give us feedback. They're not a done deal. And then after that, after the public workshop, we'll meet with you again, make more changes. Then after you see that draft change, you'll have more time before June, before we send it out for
So,
the
so
next
those,
round of review.
those chapters will be based on the discussions that you're having with the various
Yes.
people and
Yes.
boards and such.
And plus with you, like tonight, we hope to have a discussion on some
On the
zoning
and
issues.
land use
Right.
stuff.
Land use and zoning, which is the chapter we wanna give you for January,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
so.
Yeah, it's kind of like, once you have something to react to, it can kind of start the conversation a little bit more. And we have heard a lot from you so far, and we've reviewed the stakeholder questionnaires that were sent by zoning, for example, and that's where I got a lot of the questions we're gonna talk about today, from that questionnaire that you already did, so we are looking at that as well.
I wanted to also, Scott, just so you know, we're not working in a vacuum, because we are also looking at your existing comprehensive plan, trying to build on that. You know, so we see ourselves building on your comprehensive plan. Now, things have changed, things have changed. You got a lot more housing in town now, and certain things have changed, but still that initial plan is a good base, you know, so we're adding on to that, if you will. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so, we also had on the agenda to discuss anything about the public workshop, and do you wanna do that, or you wanna jump to stakeholders first? Or?
I think the public workshop, by the way, I don't think we need to spend too much time, except my reaction was a good one, in the sense that, I feel that, by the way, I would say the turnout was modest. You know, we're in a big auditorium, so when you're in a big auditorium and there's like 20 people there, it looks like, well, geez, where is everybody? But my reaction was, those who came, it was helpful to us. And I think when people tend not to come, there's several reasons why. One, they didn't know about it. Or two, they think things are going okay. There's not a controversy. You know, there's not a big controversy. Like in, I just cite Orange as an example. As we left the last meeting in Orange, Connecticut, I could hear the commission say to their planner, did Stu Leonard's file or didn't they? In other words, if Stu Leonard's comes in there or files for an application, that will be for them. It won't be here, but that would be for them down in their section of Connecticut, a big deal. And it'll be controversial. Even though we may love, some of us may, Stu Leonard's, I think, is a great store.
We love it, don't we, Mark?
But for them, it'll be a controversy. But right now, they've not filed anything. So the plan's just going along just fine. There's not a key element that's become controversial. And here you're not gonna be, you're in a different situation. I think housing might be, housing's gonna be an issue.
Yep.
And, I think so we have to be cognizant of that and careful of it.
Just on the workshop, I thought it was, I liked the format. I thought it was, and from what I, just sense from the people that were there, I think they appreciated it as well. It was just, I just wish we had more people. But I think that while we may not have had a quantity of people, I think those that were there are pretty well engaged,
Yeah, they were.
It was a lousy night, too.
Oh, it was also a lousy night, you're right.
Easy to get lost.
Yeah.
I was also curious, you had the meeting with the students beforehand. Were there any big takeaways you had from that meeting that you wanted to share?
Yeah, that was that morning actually, and that was really interesting. And the students were very engaged, like way more than I expected, to be honest. And was so it was myself and Steve Dunn, Greg, ad hoc for the what we're calling community center. In the library, right, overlooking somebody. But we all just, brief presentation, I stole a couple of your slides and threw them up there. So just to give, I was focused on the POCD, just to see if I can get some further interest in the meeting that night, but the students, it took a little while to get them to answer, for one of them to ask a question, but then once one did, a whole bunch of them then followed. So, and it was interesting, it was really interesting. A lot more focused like what's going on with this, the old school building, because a lot of them went there, they had interest, that kind of thing. But,
Yeah,
yeah, it was good though,
that's great.
it was, and the idea, I think, as I understood it, was to give them some exposure to the local government, just how that works,
Yeah,
and
how
this
it
is
works.
what people do, and this is how you get involved, that kind of thing. And I also made sure to mention the website, the POCD
Yeah.
website as well.
Yeah, we also met with the youth bureau,
Mhm.
and I will, all of the people that we're meeting with, I'll share like the publicity for the next workshop and whatnot, but she said that she definitely has some youth on that youth
Yeah.
bureau who would definitely want to be involved in the public workshop and share it with their friends, so that would be great to have some younger people also
Yeah.
giving feedback. So that's great to hear that was
Yeah,
a
10-year
successful
plan,
event.
it'll be relevant to them soon enough, right? So.
Yeah, so I guess
That's true.
continuing on that, I don't have my list right in front of me right now, but we met with the youth bureau, we met with Parks and Rec, we met with the library, we met with fire department, Brookfield Fire Department,
Social services.
schools, social services, which they have the senior center and social services, so that was great as well. I don't know who I'm missing.
Are these mostly
But
personal meetings, or are you doing this over Zoom?
These are over Zoom.
Mostly
Mhm.
over Zoom,
Yeah.
although in January we'll meet with the supervisor, and we're gonna come up for the day.
Mhm.
And Laura doesn't know this yet, but we hope to meet with Laura and Greg, just if it's possible.
One day that I'm actually out of the
Oh,
office.
you're out of the office? Okay. And,
That's fine.
but we'll like to, maybe meet with some of the finance
Okay.
Yeah.
finance people.
Yeah.
We like to do that because, and meet with the first selectman.
First
I said,
selectman,
First
mhm.
selectman, because sometimes we can get I'm not saying this is here. I've had other places where you meet with the fire chief and you hear all about the truck they need or the new fire department they need. Or you meet with the police department, they need a new police department. I'm not using this as an example, but then you meet with the chief financial officer or the electeds, selectmen, and you get wait a minute, they say, this just happened in another town. They've been asking for that fire truck for the last 10 years, we're not funding it. That kind of thing. By the way, I'm not saying this doesn't relate in any way here. But we like to meet with the selectmen and the financial people to get a sense of what can be done. What the mill rate's like, how much of an effect. I'll give you another example. In Orange, a couple of people told us, we need an addition to town hall. But when we met with the first selectman and the chief financial officer, they said, that's not in the cards. We're not putting that before a vote.
Yeah,
So.
we also learned you have a municipal building
Committee?
Committee.
Yes.
which we thought would be
It
helpful
would be
to
good to meet
us
with
as
them.
well.
Um,
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I will get you in touch.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we are, as we hear about things, we are kind of adding to our list, and we have a bunch of things scheduled in early January as well. Should we move on to the
Yeah.
survey?
Yep.
Since we don't have so much time left. So this public survey, again, the idea is that this is something for you all to react to. This is not a done deal. These are some questions that we thought might apply to Brookfield. So, and we're gonna be working on this survey for the next month. So we're hoping to get your feedback tonight, and you can email feedback later on as you take more time to review this. And we will bring our revised draft to the next meeting in January before we would make this live. And this, once it is finally formatted, it will be on SurveyMonkey. So each page will only have a couple questions. It won't be just like a huge running list. And there's one or two conditional questions depending on what people select.
By the way, a sort of big picture here, we found that that this is, we feel, about the right length. If you ask too many questions, there's no magic number, but I usually pick 20 because, you know, if you get a survey and it has 35 questions, it's too long for people to, you know, to stay with. And so we try to get it, you know, into a 20 or less question. Not there's no magic to that, but the other thing is we like to get it so that it is SurveyMonkey, so that there are questions that can be tabulated. An open-ended question,
I was
just
gonna
give us
ask.
anything else, can't be tabulated.
Yeah,
So-
and I realize that, but you're also
Yeah.
limiting some, perhaps limiting choices. So if someone feels that the town's greatest strength is something that's not on this list,
Right.
is there a place to write that wonderful thing in somewhere?
So
Yes.
my PDF also did not print correctly, it looks like, but
Mhm.
it does say, like in the introduction, it says if you have additional comments, please email us at this, and that way people can send an email directly to us, and Laura receives it and forwards it to us, and that way they can write whatever
Additional
their
comments?
are.
Yeah, but on the question itself, though, if you
Right.
feel like one of the greatest strengths or weaknesses is not one of the things on this list, if it's something else, is there a place for them to provide that input directly to the question?
Not
that's
on the
being asked?
survey as we
Yeah.
did it. And the reason is, I find it's very hard to, because no one else knows what that person is writing down,
Mhm.
you get an isolated comment. And at the end of the day, it's almost better for us to learn that isolated comment in the second workshop. You know, people have a chance to talk, they have a chance to write down and put up stickies and so on. It just can't be tabulated in a scientific way. Like, what the SurveyMonkey's gonna tell you is the percentage of people who filled this out, the percentage of people who checked, you know, certain boxes. So that's the sense of this survey. It's to really tabulate so that you get percentages of how people felt. And, you know, to just take, you know, what are the town's greatest strengths? The other thing here is, if you make it too long with all kinds of possible, they get, you know,
But you're never gonna
Yeah.
capture everything.
You're never gonna
Everybody
capture
have-
everything, right.
Everybody
Yeah.
has in mind. That's
No,
why I
you
was
won't.
saying if you had somewhere a write-in, you know, like.
Or even if it's not a write-in, just an other, so, okay,
There you go.
Yeah,
you
all
can't,
right.
you can't
Right.
tabulate
Right.
everybody
Yeah.
else's
Yeah.
Right.
other, but we might have missed something. What did we miss?
Right.
If there's a
Proximity to
bunch
my-
of
my
others,
place of
maybe we
work.
missed
Right.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What we
Yeah.
can do with that, if we do that, then is, we'll tabulate it up, but then we have a page at the end that says, by the way,
Mhm.
there was, you know, 3 people wrote other, that type of thing.
Yeah.
In other words, it can't, that's the type of thing that can't be tabulated
So
by
for
survey.
example, I did look
Yeah.
at your previous survey that you did, and you had a similar question about kind of the strengths and weaknesses of Brookfield. And I went through those and I picked the ones that had more than, you know,
Okay.
one comment and made sure they were on here. But then, and so some of those had come in as other comments. There was maybe 4 people said this or 4 people said that. And then there were a bunch of ones that were just one person
Mhm.
said it. So those might not be reflected here. Yeah.
Okay.
But I did try to see the ones that were coming in that hadn't been picked up on in your first round of the survey.
Okay.
But yeah, what we'd really like is, and we don't have to go through this, I don't think,
Yeah.
question by question, but
And-
as you
Mhm.
go through it, I'd send any comments
Yeah.
to Laura, and then we'll revise this. But maybe we should highlight what's in here right now,
Yeah.
just to highlight it.
Yeah, and just to, so most of the questions, you'll see they're phrased like this, like, what are the town's greatest strengths? Please select your top 3 choices. So people are able to click on 3 different things, or they can just click on 2, or they can click on 1, or they can skip it if they don't find that it's relevant to them. And when we do the tabulation, we will have the number of people who responded to each question. So sometimes in a survey, you see everyone responded to the first question because it's really important, but then maybe they skip over a few that are less important. And also that way, if people are wavering between a couple of the answers, they're able to pick a few of them. So we're not just saying like there's only one transportation issue in town. They can select a few different ones. So the first couple of questions are about strengths and weaknesses. The strengths and weakness question, the multiple choice answers are the same for both strengths and weaknesses. So and that way we can kind of see how some people feel more strong about ones over others. The next ones are, the next two questions, number 3 and 4, are kind of about like, do you see yourself living in Brookfield in the next 10 years? And if not, what are the reasons that you don't see yourself, that you're either moving out of Brookfield or might not want to stay here, which might give some indication of something that's not, living up to its potential in the town. And then the survey will go into another page on housing. And so this one, it's a little bit of a different format. It allows people to select high, moderate, low, or no opinion for their ranking of these different kind of goals for housing. So some of them are preserve residential neighborhoods, expand senior housing options, and so forth. And we can also add or remove any of these if you don't think that they're relevant here. But this kind of gives us a sense of how people are feeling about certain issues.
I like the housing format actually a lot to allow it that way. I think it's a good format in my
Yeah,
opinion.
because sometimes when we ask questions about this, we just get no multifamily housing, and so here we're kind of trying to get more of a range of where the agreement is, where the disagreement is, and kind of and then the next question, number 6, we kind of put out different types of housing here, and that can help us identify, what do we need more of in the town, what do we already have enough of from residents' point of view.
And this will also help us, and we need to, not tonight, but eventually, Scott, we need to just discuss that affordable housing study. It's, something in our contract, but
Yep.
we've put on hold, not hold, but kind of put it in abeyance a little
Yep.
bit right now. But we wanna come back to that a little bit.
Yeah.
So this gives us, it does ask, how they rate affordable or workforce housing, so.
Yeah, and the way it's formatted, so you'll see the next section is gonna be open space, sustainability, resilience, natural resources. So we're kind of trying to touch on all of the chapter topics, even the ones that we haven't gotten to doing the full existing conditions analysis yet, to kind of understand what some of the issues that people are facing, regularly in the town and what their priorities are for each of those topic areas. So, for open space, we ask what kind of objectives should be prioritized. So this is kind of gives the public an agency in kind of ranking which of these are the most important. If the town had to spend money on just a few of these, which ones would be the best to focus on. Economic development, here we focused in the questions a little bit on Federal Road more broadly, and then later on Four Corners. And so this, I would definitely like your feedback on this and kind of the breakdown of those two commercial areas or two key commercial areas. If you think that there's more kind of commercial pockets to break out on Federal Road, we can do something like that as well. We've done that in other places. Yeah, and then the next section is on transportation. This one is a little bit thin right now, but just trying to get at what are the kind of main issues for people. Is it things that are happening on roads? Is it this lack of public transit in the town? Is it safety for bikes and pedestrians? Community facilities, we know that there is a very strong desire in the town for a community center that also accommodates the library and Parks and Rec. So this is kind of getting at what are those kind of facilities that people really want, and if there's a limited number of things that could happen.
I don't see gym space on here, do I?
Oh, we can add that.
We need more.
That was a basketball coach.
Gym space, okay.
Yeah, we heard that
The new
the
school
Parks
we
and
lost.
Rec are only really
Yeah,
able to
we didn't
use
get
the
any for sure.
school facilities and those kind of things, so
Yeah,
there's
not
not
in-
an opportunity for rec
And
leagues really.
fields, for that matter.
And baseball, yeah, baseball
Well, I thought
fields.
there is a field proposed, isn't it, for the new schoolhouse?
Can I just
There
jump back
was,
to
yeah.
12?
Yes.
Actually,
First two lines are the
they're
same.
supposed to try to put a field
Oh, wait.
hockey
Yeah.
rink, but they're not trying to-
There's a good mix of
Oh,
retail
right.
restaurants, so
Thank
is
you.
one supposed to be
Oh,
different?
gee, yeah, you're right, yep.
Are we missing one, or is this a dupe?
I think it's just a duplication,
Okay.
but if there's anything you think that should be added or altered, please take your time, we don't have to go through it
Yeah.
and wordsmith everything tonight, but
Yeah.
please look through it carefully.
One thing that just caught my eye that I would note is on page 2 of the survey, under public services, trash pickup is listed as one. Brookfield doesn't have public trash pickup.
But it was raised as, at one point,
Okay.
Davidson, he raised it as a municipal trash pickup. He was pushing that. I don't remember that. Davidson?
Oh, was he really? Okay. I don't remember that.
Are any towns around here have that? Not that I'm aware of.
I guess the question is, should we ask that if you don't provide it now?
Yeah.
Should we?
Well,
I
I
don't
think
think
right
people
now
will
it's
say
just,
restraint.
it's just in the
non-existent.
EG.
Right.
Tell them how much
for
it's gonna
public
cost and then ask
services,
them
So
the
I think you would just
Yeah.
not include it.
I'd probably not include it right
Yes.
now. Yeah, I think you're right.
It's also just listed as.
Eventually, if you get to that point, there'd be some type of vote or some type of, you'll have to know the cost of it,
You would leave that off. But
Yeah,
snow plowing in
I
general.
think we leave it off, yeah.
Just not the roads.
Thanks, good catch.
Yep, and the last page, is just kind of some demographic information to know whether people who are responding to the survey live in Brookfield or work in Brookfield, the age range of respondents, and how long they've lived here.
Maybe I'll put a not applicable on that one.
Okay.
Which is not applicable?
The, how long you've
19, in
lived
case you
here.
don't live in
Yeah.
Brookfield.
Oh, yeah.
What they fill out the survey then? That's my question.
Well, if they
They
work
might work
here,
here. They might
yeah.
work.
Oh, I know, but the one that says neither.
Well, that's a double check to say, oh, I
Yeah.
don't live here, and then if they say they do,
Right,
then we'll just throw that one out.
that's right. Okay.
I say you catch flies in these
But,
surveys.
think about the survey, and as you go through it, if there's something we didn't ask that's important to you, or something like trash pickup, which you don't have, which we just, deleted, it needs to be a survey that's gonna be useful to you and, to your respective boards and bodies, so.
I've mentioned before, I think we should mention, address like just the lake. I wonder if
The
number
lake.
8 should be expanded to include something, we touched upon contamination, but,
Yes.
or maybe something in addition to that with regards to the lakes.
Well, number 2 there under 8 is addressing contamination in Candlewood Lake and
Yeah,
other water bodies, so we do cover that part of it. yeah.
right. Well, I think we wanna get at least some feedback as to, I guess, overall, a sense of what direction we should go with the lakes.
With the lakes, okay.
Yeah, maybe use of the lakes, something like that.
Yeah, preserve it, or if there's some other thoughts out there, yeah.
Limited,
Limit, yeah.
Well, sorry, limited?
limit.
Limit.
You limit,
use
I mean,
of-
it's not
yeah.
something people wanna talk about, but I mean, I don't use the lake, so, but I've heard people complain on the weekends it's a zoo.
Oh, too many, but, yeah.
And, and the more boats, the more pollution.
Yeah.
Right. So we should phrase something, a question.
And I don't think limit is the word you wanna
Yeah,
maybe
no,
use,
right,
but
right.
I'm cut and dry sometimes, so,
Yeah, concerns about use of,
yeah.
Yeah, we.
which is tough, because they're owned by multiple towns around, both
Oh,
of
well,
them.
yes,
Yeah.
that's right, but, what use of the Candlewood, we'll try to develop a question on that, yeah.
Candlewood and Lowell.
In
Lowell,
Lowell,
Lowell.
yeah.
Another one on question 10. I like the question. I would maybe make it more like all encompassing though. Like for example, if they were to do more streetscape improvements, that would also mean upgraded traffic signals. And I would include
Okay.
some phrasing like that.
Okay. So on Federal Road, it is a state road,
Yeah,
so just keep that in mind as well.
Mhm.
they have their complete streets, so they
They
kind of
have
throw all
complete
that anyway.
streets, and they also have their own list of priorities on dangerous, things like dangerous
Okay.
intersections
Mhm.
and what have you, that, how do I say this? They gather their own data on what their priority list for
Yeah,
the
the
state
state.
roads.
Yeah, although I find that a plan could influence them. Again, we have this in another town on Route 1, where we've got, we're putting in the plan that we want side with the town. wants sidewalks
Yep.
on both sides of Route 1,
Mhm.
as opposed to the town I live in.
Well-
Doesn't want any sidewalks on Route 1,
Even-
except downtown.
When we have redevelopment of a commercial property, especially along Federal Road, we encourage and ask to have sidewalks put on. Even if they go nowhere then, they start connecting
Mhm,
together.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
that's
is-
outside of, and even the state, state has their complete streets with their sidewalks, but ahead of that, if they're not doing anything like on Chick-fil-A, we'll start connecting them.
So is that question not really relevant then?
It's,
I think maybe outside the Four Corners, because the streetscape is specifically Four Corners, and it
Yes.
was made because of the town centers, that's why
Yeah.
they called it that, but, maybe outside the,
I can say that I got tires put on my car and decided to kill an hour getting lunch or something, on Federal Road. Try walking across that or walking anywhere where there aren't, it's an impossibility,
yeah. Were you down
Or somebody who
Town
wants.
Fair? Is that where you were?
No, but,
No.
but anywhere, pick your
Yeah.
spot, really.
Yeah.
It's not-
It's, you
You
can't
take your
really.
life in your hands, yeah.
Yeah, if you're walking along the road, it's just
Yeah,
untenable.
yeah. And you do have people who take bus service too, so
Mhm.
that's something to
Yeah.
consider. To get to a bus stop, right?
something
Mhm.
I would also
Yeah.
suggest looking
Yeah,
at
even
with
on-
that is the streetscape
Yeah,
project and
even
the
on
phases
133.
due to base
Yeah.
of development
Yeah.
that fell through.
Yeah.
Our streetscape plan for the town center district is kind of up in the air at the moment, so it might be something you would wanna further, discuss,
Mm.
particularly with Greg.
With Greg, the streetscape plan and the.
Because some of the plans for the streetscape in the town center district is now very,
Yeah, it's going
Phase
north.
7 went north.
Yeah.
What is, Laura, can you fill us in just a little bit on that, town center,
Uh,
streetscape plan, town center?
So I believe it's a lots of grant that they've been working with for developing the streetscape plan.
Yeah.
If you notice, you might be more familiar with this than I am at the
Oh,
moment.
yeah, there's a number of phases, and you'll see the first phase is already there with the sidewalks, the bricks, the lights,
Right,
bike path. There's many phases that go down south towards the new
Grocery store.
Grocery store
Yeah.
there.
Yep.
But also to go north towards what we call Newberry Village, a plus 55 place, and end there for now. That's in danger because the state needs to know all the curb cuts, and a property developer just pulled out, and so now we don't have that curb cut, and so that one's up in the air. But we'd love to push that forward, just for this same reason, we want sidewalks so people can go from any of these multifamily developments down to the center of town.
is there something we could ask on question 10? This, I'm wondering about that. The public doesn't understand the phases, well, maybe they do,
No, they don't,
but
trust
they
me.
don't, yeah.
No, there's so many
Phases.
phases.
There's so many phases,
I think they
Alright.
understand streetscape, but,
yeah,
but this could also go beyond, go further south,
yeah.
all the way to Danbury line. And it could go like 133, which is a
Yeah.
road that hits it,
That's
which
it.
is also in the commercial zone.
Yeah, okay.
Because we have sidewalks that just stop and there's no continuation, and there's
Right.
bus stops there,
There
Yeah,
are.
yeah. But it does seem, even though it's a state road, and of course the DOT's gonna do their own thing, but it could, this type of thing, if there's support for it, we put it in a plan, that, sometimes that can influence the state. I mean, they're supposed to,
Yeah.
in theory, they're supposed to look at and conform to your plan of conservation and development, so it
I
could.
mean, if you put it
influence.
as a safety question too, I'm wondering if you sit for the safety of people walking on Federal Road, do you support
Yeah.
the sidewalks?
Oh, yeah, I think that's a good
Pedestrian
idea.
safety or
Now,
something.
the other thing in here is, if we've got a person in the office I sometimes ask to look at these questions, and they might call that one a leading question.
Oh, right.
If I'm just saying.
I'm biased.
Yeah.
Right. And by the way, I kinda agree with you, if it is a safety issue,
Mhm.
I mean, I would certainly answer yes on a safety.
I mean, on what the state just bought south of I'll call it the South Four Corners area, or that whole strip, they
Yeah.
put in sidewalks, we now have bus stops. I mean,
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I saw people walking on the grass next to Costco or the berms,
Yeah,
trying to
right.
get anywhere and taking their life in their hands if there's snow and ice.
Yeah, right,
And
okay,
now they have bus stops and they have great sidewalks to walk on. I mean,
Yeah.
that's good.
excuse me, speaking of bus stops, would you be open to reaching out to Hart Transit to speak with them to get their perspective on like the way
yeah.
services run in the town?
Yeah, in fact, Mark Fricker ought to do that. Yeah, heart service.
It's also a service with some of the employees of some of those places as well.
Right.
Yep.
And maybe when you say the supported extension, maybe the town paying for it. Because right now, for example, Barnbeck, you know, where the cornfield is, they have a sidewalk and then there's nothing like in front of Nordex. And then the sidewalk begins again. So people have to, on the sidewalk now on, across the grass or snow. And Nordex probably doesn't wanna pay for a sidewalk, but what if there was some sort of
Do you have a
sharing?
sidewalk fund or something when people don't or don't provide a sidewalk, they have to pay into it?
No, and I guess that would be a
The
question.
remedy for it.
Yeah, is there, you know, should we have some
But it's
sort
a
of
front
fund?
door one, they could do it.
Taking the snow off of there too, right?
Yeah, cause
Which
it's
is
an
one of the
obligation.
reasons, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the major pushback,
Yeah.
the maintenance.
Because that means that's park and rec then, right? Or,
Well, sometimes it's
It's the
the
property
home,
owner side.
Property owner.
Yeah.
Mhm.
depending
But
on
if
the
the
location.
town paid for the sidewalk and it's on the first,
well, maybe that's where there would be, you take care of it, we'll put it in, you take care of it. But that's the whole thing, we don't really have any control
Sidewalk
over that
maintenance.
unless it's redeveloped, and now we have some
Yeah,
partial
also you
control.
may not have control over it on Federal Road because of the state.
State and property owners, you know.
Yeah, and property, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we usually find it, as a policy, a lot of towns like to have, they may pay for it, or when somebody new comes in and site plan approval, they get the sidewalk, but.
That's when we ask.
Yeah, but the property owner is responsible for maintaining it.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's those existing properties that it sure would be nice to put a sidewalk in when they're not about to
Yeah,
redevelop.
then you have, that's where you need a fund
Sign,
of some
yeah.
sort, yeah, yeah.
That's an interest.
Yeah, I also think before you, well, it's a different subject, but when you get into sidewalks, or for instance, you almost need and we could say this in the plan, that to avoid that, where you get an isolated sidewalk and it doesn't go anywhere, you really need to require those, like a part of site plan review, where there is a sidewalk plan that says where you're going, you know?
Mhm.
You don't want a sidewalk put in where where it doesn't make any sense to put it in. You know, so one of the things that might come out of this is a call for a very specific sidewalk plan, because that in itself would be a help
Mhm.
eventually.
Yep.
Yeah. The other place I find that very helpful is, we're facing this right now in Granby. You know, some people wanted us to put in a bike lane on Route 20, Granby Center to Bradley International. That's one heavily traveled road. So we'll ask we'll ask questions about that, because it does raise, reverse, some safety issues. And it's a state road, so DOT has the call on it in any case, so, yeah. But my point is that if the town has a plan, you're going from one place to the other, the bike lane is, an important bike lane. That's different than just a scatter shot, someone said, oh, well, how about a sharrow, which means, you sign the road and, you share the lane. That'd be suicide on Route 20 in Granby, going to Bradley Field, 4-lane road, huge traffic volumes. You can't do that, and it doesn't make sense. So, that kind of overall bike plan and also overall sidewalk plan makes sense to really do a separate study eventually, but the plan could set the stage for that.
I would even suggest that study to be taken on. It's
Yeah,
an
yeah.
interest of the town.
Yeah, okay,
Do you
yeah,
think,
sorry.
we should move into the zoning discussion for,
Why don't you highlight yeah, I think so, let's get it, yeah.
okay. So, these questions, definitely not a comprehensive list of questions, just things that I came across while I was reviewing, in particular, the response from the zoning commission to the, last plan.
Yep.
So I guess the first one is just about the TCD zoning. What should be tweaked? Have the design guidelines been effective? And what kind of aspects of the Four Corners revitalization plan do you think still need to be reviewed? for change, those are all kind of about that topic, the first chunk. Four
Any
corners.
sense of these?
Well, yeah, and these are the questions we were asked by the planning commission. For example, the building size and height and everything, from the last POCD, they were talking about 2.5-story buildings. What ended up finally in the regs was 3-story, and then you can go up maybe half. And they tend to be 3.5 stories, because they'll have a loft in the gable end. And a lot of feedback was, wow, that's kind of high, you know. Especially since the POCD talked about 2.5, and that's what the people's feedback was, or from the survey. I guess my feeling from feedback I've had and looking at what's there now, and that is my opinion, that maybe it should go back down to what that was. I think there was some influence by some of the developers that said, oh, it's unviable, you know, it's not viable to do just 2 stories, 2.5 stories, mixed retail.
By the way, I have to say.
But I think the people who go down there, some of them don't like them so tall, but then maybe.
No, and then, but you think about it, I mean, I was at the running store today, I was
Yeah.
earlier, and if you have a 2-story building, or
Yeah.
2.5,
Yeah,
if the ground floor is commercial, that's only 1.5 stories
Yes.
above it,
yeah,
and,
yeah.
It makes.
and I'm not saying what the right answer is.
No,
I
and
mean,
actually that building, and maybe because it's set down,
Set down.
that one seems more in scale with what we were thinking about than, say, the Brookfield Village. That seems a little larger, it's a little closer to the road. And so maybe that's not so bad, because I go down to Bethel and I see 3-story buildings down there, you know, close to the road, and that's kind of what the idea was. Have a closer, you know, more intimate setting for the middle, the
Yeah.
core of our downtown. But maybe as you go further out, they should scale down and further away from the road. So I've heard a lot of comments about that.
Yeah.
One apartment house, that's 3 stories and ranks to the road. Even though that was a 830G settlement, still, they don't like that. You know,
Yeah.
we're no more than 25 feet away on our zoning, and so that creates the intimate and the core. But as you go further out, maybe we should have outer core, which they used to, and maybe push the buildings back a little, pull them down a little. So the idea, and this is where the gateway stuff comes in. The gateways were intended to create this way of coming into the center of our village, and the scale will start going up and more intimate from something lower and further back. And then the gateways would have more commercial, medical, that sort of things, mixed with some housing. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so,
I didn't print for everyone, but you can each share with your neighbor, though.
So for the consultants, you know, you see the pink ones are these gateway zones. Now, the south one isn't so big. And actually the north one's a little bit bigger. Not much has happened there, it's been too early. Even for the TCD when it was first created back in 2000, before 2015,
Yeah, I think it was.
But nothing much happened. The bypass would just gone in, and it needed something. Someone had to be the first. And
That was
this is
Brookfield
the
Village was the
TC,
first.
this is the TCD or the
TCD, right?
TCD, right, yeah.
Yeah. So that took a little while to go, and then in 2018, we created those other 2 zones in the top and bottom. They used to be called something else.
Yeah.
The uses are not that different than they used to be, except we wanted to focus on what we wanted rather than what they allowed. And then tweak what they allow to have that vision of, here's the gateway into our downtown.
Yeah.
Nothing much has happened because it's one of those things, you create it and it'll take a little while
Takes a
before
while,
someone decides to do something. So there's maybe a couple of industrial condos, and when they came in front of us, we tried to make sure they looked nice materials and stuff. Even though they're metal buildings, they might have some stone on the top, and also enough vegetation there,
Yeah.
native. to make it look nice.
Primarily
But
native,
then there's
right?
that new storage unit there on Gray's Bridge.
Well, that's an
Isn't it?
industrial zone.
Oh, yeah, but still an
Yeah.
eyesore.
Well,
It's
yeah,
awful.
but it's industrial, you know?
Yeah.
We
So,
have found in other.
It's
oh,
so
sorry.
close to the commercial that you can see it, but, you
Yeah.
know, it's like, well, it is industrial and, you know, and industrial zones go industrial things. I kinda like gray and green though. It is large.
So
At least they don't really create traffic problems, storage units.
Is that a
No.
company in the industrial, gray and green, or?
It's extra space storage.
Oh, okay.
He was just describing the colors of the.
Yeah, yeah.
Colors.
people need to get rid of their crap. That's-
But I think what you said about
Mine,
the,
store it. Done with that.
the outer core versus inner core, the
Yeah,
zoning makes
I-
some sense.
You know, they used to have something like that. They used to call it the Village Business District. And they used to have an inner core, which I think was supposed to have.
And we had the corridors, we had the north corridor, the northwest
Yeah,
quadrant.
and they were sort of less intensive. And that sort of went away when they created the.
I think it went when the Brookfield Village went in, is right around the time you
Yeah.
guys changed the zoning regs.
Well, that happened a couple years afterwards, but yeah, yeah.
So all this, a lot of this, what you're describing though, took place before a lot of the more recent development, right?
Yes,
And you were
and
referring
now
back
we're
to-
seeing it.
Yeah, right, so going back to, what was it, 2015, I think, or that area
Yeah.
that you were describing, was there a concern at that time, like, well, what if nobody comes? Do we have to do, how do we get business here? How do we get development here? Or
Well, I
was there
wasn't on-
assumption that would just come
I
along?
was on the ZBA at the time, so I
So,
didn't,
okay,
I didn't know what
alright,
the
so
discussions
you
were,
weren't
but
there.
I do know, like,
Yeah.
Brookfield Village got some incentives. Okay, you're the
Yeah.
first ones in,
Mhm.
so we're gonna do something for you.
Mhm.
And this sort of went away when, you know, that started things. And you can see some of those things start. But there sure is a lot of chance for redevelopment, because there's a lot of small properties there.
Mhm.
I guess, and that's why we have this moratorium in some ways, because these mixed use tend to be taller, because you
Right.
need enough,
Developers can say, I
okay, you
can't make
need enough
money.
people living there, you know, yeah, to make the money
Right.
with the
Right.
We
apartments.
found that it's not, we found in other developments, it's not very practical for a two-story building when you only have one level of residential over retail.
And that's probably where the
It's-
three.
Yeah,
stories
that's where
came
the
from.
three would come from. You gotta put elevators in for residential normally,
Yeah,
you know, if they're off, you know, and if
Yep,
you're gonna,
yep.
it's very, the financial pro forma is very hard to,
Yeah.
unless he got the land for, or she got the land for a really great price.
Yeah.
A two-story building doesn't, it doesn't
It's not
pencil
that-
out.
Well, and I think that's what unfortunately the residents don't understand, that is, you
Yeah.
know, and going back even further, you know, we thought it was gonna be a nice quaint little, like, little one-story shops.
Mhm.
Well, to build a 2,000 square foot shop costs what, $1 million when you're said and done with the sewer and
Yeah,
everything
yeah.
else, and
That's right.
you
Yeah.
can't get paid back on that.
and commercial's hard to rent,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so it's.
So
yeah.
there's sort of, we only hear from the vocal people.
Yeah, yeah,
When
right.
some multi-use, multi-family development comes in front of us, we'll hear about it from
Yeah,
the
right.
people.
Yeah.
You know, and they bring up the, you know, the standard stuff, school population, traffic and everything.
Yeah,
And, you know, we listen, but right now the regs allow that. So the question, so almost, it would be nice to get feedback on that, and that's, you have some of that in this survey.
yeah,
People will answer those questions about too much.
yeah.
Maybe, and I'll look at it, maybe height, I think you have height in
We
there too.
could ask
We
specifically
could ask, like, would
about
you be
height.
comfortable with a
Yeah,
3-story building if it was set back further from the road, or if it provided
Something
public,
like that,
I don't
yeah,
know, something, yeah.
yeah.
yeah. If we ask the question, I can guess at the answer, and that is. But the problem is that there's this, well, we always say it's a balance between, what you don't want is to set a standard to which no one's gonna build to.
Yeah, yeah,
And that's the danger with a two-story building.
Yeah.
That's what
and
we
I
found.
think that's how it went from 2.5
To 3.5.
to 3.5.
Yeah, yeah. They just need 3 is what we found, 2 over 1. In other words,
Yeah.
2 residential over 1 of retail.
Right,
If you don't get that, it's very
that
difficult.
nothing's gonna happen.
Yeah, nothing, your danger
Yeah.
is that nothing's gonna happen.
People associate tall buildings with cities.
Yes,
It is.
that's
You
the
know?
biggest comment I see on
Yeah.
Facebook, oh, the city of Brookfield, and it's like,
Yes,
well, you
right.
know, a lot of villages, even Kent, has a lot of buildings downtown, densely populated, and you go outside, you know, outside the center, and it's all rural. I mean, that's the same here, you know.
Yeah.
This is the only area
Yeah,
over there that's, you know, dense like that.
yeah,
And then, yeah, if you go down Federal Corridor, down our main corridor,
Yeah, but you got Barbeck, and that's the only thing down there.
yeah.
I mean, everything else is low.
And interestingly enough, there is a 106 unit apartment way at the bottom of Federal Road that nobody knows is there. I don't think many people know. Town Park, there's an apartment building down there. It's been there for
Oh,
decades.
yeah, yeah, it's been
Yeah.
a long time.
I don't know if it was a big
Yeah.
bug, you know,
Can't even
people,
see it.
Sometimes, because we're so hilly, some of these things blend
in the
into-
valley.
that's
Yeah.
what we need.
Yeah.
Hills.
Yeah.
Yes,
we do. We do.
Put that in the
Yeah.
survey,
Yeah.
Burns and
Right.
Hills.
Yeah. We were,
yeah. Well, can we just, maybe just highlight
Yeah.
the single family?
I guess I just wanted to ask one more question about Four Corners
Mhm.
first. Has it produced that kind of like mixed use vitality that the revitalization plan was looking for, or what do you think has been?
You know, I think it was, you know, part of it, I see a lot of people on the Still River Greenway, and I think a lot have walked
Absolutely.
there.
Mhm.
And there's the shops, you know, there's people going to the restaurants and stuff like that. I think when they get more people above the grocery store,
you know
Emporium
when,
Plaza.
we'll know it's really hit its mark is when there's a discussion about whether or not we should move our Memorial Day parade there.
No, I think when you can't get a parking spot.
We may be
When
there.
you
oh,
can't
well, so that is the other
When
problem.
you can't get a parking spot, our traffic guy says is a sign of success.
Where does the parade currently happen?
High school to the center school area.
Yeah, that's our church center,
Yeah.
past there.
But no, I was at
The old
a
center.
ribbon cutting today, and a woman moved her business, it was north of the Four Corners, across from the bowling alley. She moved now across from, what was it, 777 Federal
Oh,
Road.
yeah.
And she said the traffic, the foot traffic alone, because the path is right across the street from her, and she's very excited now about her new location. So, I mean, she's in the hairdresser, whatever,
Oh, yeah.
Lux
Personal
Beauty
service.
Okay.
bar.
That's
and
fine.
Yeah.
She said the foot traffic has been unbelievable.
Yeah.
Were
So-
there any like holiday sidewalk sales or anything like that? Anything going on? It wasn't,
In-
not that I heard of that.
In there?
Yeah, yeah.
No, I don't.
And,
She, if you're looking for a present for your wife, I think you could do very well in there getting her gift certificate.
I'm usually last
Yeah.
minute, so yeah, thanks.
And even in the summer, we have the block
I was
party.
just about to
And-
mention the
and
block
that
party is
seems well
located now
attended.
there.
Okay,
So I
All
would
right.
say yes, I mean, things
Yeah.
are working.
yeah, they're working.
Okay, so
All
we
right,
can
maybe
move
we'll go
on.
to single family.
Okay. Do you wanna skip over commercial districts parking requirements and standard? And then come to
I was just following what you
Oh,
have
it's in
here.
this order,
Oh,
it's on the
yeah.
page.
Oh, I see.
So the
yeah.
other commercial districts, so I think, one thing I was trying to get at here is, maybe it was in 2018, you were saying that some of the other zones were created, the gateway zones.
Yes.
There's also the C1 and C2, zones that
Yeah,
seem like they were
those are
more
the
recent.
south,
Yeah.
you know, all the big box
Yeah, the red
stores.
Yeah.
one at the bottom.
Yep.
Yeah, and I guess, you know, there was talk in the POCD about coordinated development and master plan. I guess in some ways this creates that, because the C2 is more neighborhood
Right,
versus
And the C1
the
is the
regional,
bigger
which is C1, and regional being the BJ's and the Costco and
Costco,
stuff like
yeah.
that. I think that would, and so the size of the lots and whether it's site plan or special permit is predicated on what we wanted to have there.
right. So it's probably worked out pretty well.
Well, I don't know if, I guess it would be self-selection by the people who move in there, but
Yeah.
then some of them are just like, hey, Starbucks, we need to move here, not because of C2 or C1, but because everybody goes by, you know, and that's where
Sure.
we pull up the traffic.
Yeah, yeah.
Hugely
All right.
triple traffic.
Okay, and are the architectural guidelines in these other like commercial districts, are they working at all?
I
Do
don't
we
know if there
have
are any, no,
architectural
there are no.
guidelines?
The only
Code
architectural
says that
guidelines
there's
right now.
architectural guidelines that apply to all, It says.
Town center and gateways.
No, no, no.
It's not
Those
really,
are separate
if they
ones.
exist, I don't think they're enforced, right?
Okay, they're in
No,
here.
I mean, I guess.
wish I wrote the
We're not
chapter.
architects on a zoning
For all
commission.
non-residential structures in any district in any district, that's the word.
We have our general standards and section.
Yeah.
and-
And so, material type, lighting
Yeah,
type and
painting
stuff
color
like that.
and stuff,
So
yeah.
general standards in section 6 kind of cover that.
Yeah.
Do we have an architectural design board? No.
No,
Yeah,
we
we
And
don't.
the
saw
only
that
one that
was-
has an architectural design document
Mhm.
is the TCD, where
Yeah.
we
Which
want
gives you
New England
examples.
thing and the
Mhm.
massing
The
and all
TCD
that.
has a
Yeah.
So
document.
there is an
Yeah, we didn't
addendum
do that.
that
Yeah.
is part of the
Yeah.
zoning regs.
Yeah.
Because
Well,
we do
I-
have one on lighting standards under that general.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, and on, gates and, it's had,
I don't
stone
think-
walls and,
No,
Yours
not
are
for
in
those
historic.
lower zones, no.
I'm curious where you're looking.
okay, maybe I'm looking at the wrong-
Yeah.
I mean, I know it says that, but
Yeah, yeah. As I said before, we've had
I wish I had cited.
qualms about. I think other towns that have tried them have had that. I think what you have
For the
is
designs?
maybe pretty good in terms of guidelines, rather than having a separate architectural review board.
Yeah, number
Um,
6, here's
we used to, but
canopies,
then,
doors, I'm
eventually it
trying to find here's
disbands,
building
and
Yeah.
then you
design,
have to have qualified people
Fences, walls,
Yeah,
yeah.
outdoor displays,
Willing to
outdoor dining.
donate their time.
We found the
They
other
don't use
option
this at all.
is to,
It's not referred
have
to.
either planning board or a combined
It
board,
says that it's
whatever.
the
We
zoning
found in
commission
some
that's responsible for
communities, they
making
just
sure
have
that it-
3 people of that, and like a subcommittee that looks at
The
design
consultation
guidelines or
review
enforces
says
them.
land use.
Yeah.
That way you don't have to, again, get all separate people for an architectural review board.
Yeah,
We also find they can easily, the danger of the architectural review board is it becomes one of taste, and that's
Mhm.
not too good.
yeah.
So, I think what you have is maybe,
You with your green and gray.
Well, if you have all this and you're not using it, what's the,
Yeah.
is it just that it's too hard to like administer or?
That's your face, don't work.
Did they
So
come,
many
did they
cares
come to you with
or-
those colors?
No,
I
that's the-
don't think it's
that's the
statics.
corporate color.
Oh, okay.
Now, again, I've only been here for a year.
That's the
I
second
don't
one
believe
down.
the zoning commission put a priority necessarily. Mr. Mr.
That's
Chair of the zoning commission.
Who
I
said
can't
what?
just say Mr. Chair here, it's very confusing, because I have a line, but, do you feel that the zoning commission put a priority on the aesthetics of the architecture, or is it more of the uses and the locations when we were looking at your site plan reviews?
Well, those uses and everything certainly matter, but
Oh.
we always want elevations and colors and
Absolutely,
materials.
yeah.
I
Because
knew
we
it
don't want
seemed-
something ugly, we want it
Yeah.
to kind of fit in with what's around it.
sounds
So
to
we're-
me like you're doing what you should be in the site plan review.
Yeah,
I would stay away from
An
an architectural review
Yeah.
board, and I'd stay away from getting into detailed architecture, because it gets into taste, it gets into arguments among architects, and, I think it sounds to me like what you have might be appropriate.
yeah, the thing that gets more into that is our TCD design guide.
No, it sounds to me like they are using it, that
Oh.
he's looking
Okay.
at site plans, he's looking at.
Yeah, so outside of the
Elevations.
TCD, the C1, C2,
Yeah,
we look at the elevations and stuff. We wanna
Yeah.
see them because
yeah.
we just don't wanna look at it and overview.
No, that's right.
Yeah.
But also, you don't wanna box yourself in,
Yeah, they,
because,
they're pretty good. They bring their landscaping plans and stuff, and
yeah, yeah.
and so far the commission
My
has
sense
asked a
is
lot of
to-
questions about it.
Leave well enough alone, and not recommend any toughening of these. They're barely using them now.
And I
So-
guess we'll look and to see clean up
Yeah,
architectural standards for outside the other zones down
Yeah,
Federal
right.
Road. I mean, we don't really have any other than
Well, you guys act
we-
as a.
act as
you
a,
act.
yeah.
you act as.
We're trying to make everything kind of fit in with everything else down there.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, I know some towns like Wilton and stuff, they'll want that corridor, the commercial corridor to look beautiful. And so they have a lot of regulations about what
We're
things
based off
look
of
like.
form-based code.
yeah,
now.
although we did Wilton, and, on Route 7, as a corridor, they don't have, very detailed architectural
Oh, they
design. Where Wilton has it,
Down there.
where Wilton has it now is in the center.
It's like Federal Road.
Oh,
But the
yeah.
center's not on 7.
No,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
7, I have to say, well, except for the bottom part of Wilton
Yeah.
on 7, the rest of it is very nicely done.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
a lot of corporate.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess I was wondering a little bit about the industrial districts. What kind of like uses are currently there? Are those properties filled? Are the spaces filled? Is there vacancies? Is there truck traffic issues or
Sort of weird. There's,
jobs? Does it provide jobs?
I mean, there's a mix of light industrial and some other areas where the railroad kind of, it makes it a pain in the ass to get trucks around because they have their couple bridges that trucks can't get under.
Bridges too. I mean,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, so
Yeah.
they have
Yeah.
the big trucks, like Farmco does industrial solvents, and they have a train track there that they pull them off the tank. And we have, right out of my street, we have big tankers come up this little road owned by the railroad. And then they come up onto onto a residential street. Even so, a major one, but still,
Yeah.
it's an issue. Man, if we could do something about that, that would be good. So it's sort of cut in half, our
Yeah,
industrial
yeah.
zone.
Yeah. All right.
And
Okay.
are most of those filled or are there vacancies?
I don't know, what's 70% filled?
I would say that's safe to say.
Yeah. I
Probably
think like this
around-
is the land use map and there's this
Mhm.
one large like vacant area. I don't know if you know what that is.
So wooded behind where I live.
Send you all.
Yeah, it's exactly what you're talking about, Bill Road.
That's just
So,
like that road,
yep.
yeah.
That's where I figured you were pointing.
Berkshire
Yeah.
Corporate
Well, you gotta,
Park.
if
Yeah.
you're a truck, you gotta come in
That's,
with a dirt road
Did
Do you
or
know
Yeah.
Bethel.
where,
Yeah, they kind of paved it.
I'm trying to figure out, what's, golf?
Golf.
Golf.
course.
Yeah, golf.
Yeah, I'm like, I
ranch.
couldn't
Golf
think of what it
ranch.
was called, Golf
Golf
Ranch?
ranch.
Golf range,
Yeah, that's the road that goes past Golf Ranch,
Oh,
up
yeah.
under the bridge, and then up to
Well, that's
Stony Hill
Sam's
Road.
Hut.
Yeah.
But,
Vale
yeah,
Road
but
comes
it's
up
off of Stony Hill,
And
but,
it's
yeah,
partially dirt, because it's
partially
not a town
paved
road,
and kind of
and
one
then it turns
direction.
into Vale Road and Bethel
It's-
eventually.
well,
Oh,
it's
okay.
two-
What is that?
It's
Spelled
Vale
two
Road,
different
and
ways.
it's where
You'll
all
see
of
it
that
now, you
area
cross
where
the
the
border.
industrial is. It's very odd, I actually just drove it
I
today,
knew that.
very,
What, Vale Road is spelled two different ways?
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Really?
is
Yeah.
that,
You go through
I don't
two
know,
Monday
like vacant
bridges.
property there?
That's-
or-
yeah,
that's
your-
Bethel.
this
It's
One
right
by
by
the
the
golf
there.
course
And is
then
there
you
any
go right.
like,
Yeah.
Oh, I never
There
really
are
thought
some
about that.
construction yards, contractors' yards,
Okay.
and, yeah.
Do you have a sense that your industrial
Yeah.
zones are, sufficient enough that there's opportunity to grow and to, or are they, bursting at the seams? There's no other, yeah.
I would not say that they're bursting
No.
at the seams.
They're not,
Well,
okay.
we have a little bit of space in the industrial, Steiner's property.
We have
Yeah.
Berkshire Corporate Park.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
corporate
Which
park,
is-
is that
there's,
filled?
yeah,
Yeah,
most of the
they just
buildings
came to
around.
us, yeah, they said they have some space available still.
They
up
just
there.
split
Yeah.
the lots,
Yeah.
yes.
Mhm.
And
There
then
are
here on
some-
Silver Mine,
yeah.
they're close, there's the site that we just approved, that's gonna have a building. But aside from that,
Okay.
those are pretty.
There are a few empty buildings though on Federal
Yeah.
Road.
Behind,
Maybe the aquatic center and
There's-
red,
What were you
Too
doing
many.
there with that?
yeah,
Big
this
furniture
is
stores
like a
empty.
year
that
ago.
red building
Townsville,
and
yeah.
downtown area.
So it sounds like you have plenty of industrial,
Plus they-
commercial
they-
land zone.
Yeah.
You don't need any more, if you've got vacancies like that, yeah.
And the commercial gateway north,
Yeah.
that could have a light industrial
Yeah,
up there too.
yeah.
And
okay.
there's a big 30 acre property up there or something.
Okay, yeah. All right, good, okay. All right. All right,
Parking requirements, so we heard a bit from you about, a difficulty with implementing the shared parking in Four Corners and some stuff about,
Or
having
anywhere,
connected
actually.
parking lots, yeah. Is there
Yeah,
any
it's a
other-
liability issue where, property owners don't want another next door neighbor driving across and who's responsible if there's an accident or how do you handle the insurance and everything, so they don't
well,
want
that's, yeah, you mean,
Shared
where,
Connected parking lot.
interconnected
connected.
parking lots.
Mhm.
Now, shared parking traditionally has not meant that, but instead, you've got retail and you've got residential above.
Mhm.
And you're allowing them to share the parking in back or in front, wherever it is. In other words, the residential, it's not defined as to where commercial has to be or residential.
In this context, it
Yeah.
was specifically to reduce curb cuts.
That's
So-
access
Okay.
management,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
That's
there's
a
where the
little different,
liability act.
yeah, that's different than shared parking.
And it
to
would be
us.
nice to do that because sometimes some properties don't need all the parking, the other ones do.
Yeah,
They certainly could get we do have a mechanism for allowing someone to rent, parking off-site as long as they had a way to get to their property
Yeah,
through a sidewalk or something.
but what we found in, like, when we did Route 6, we did a whole access management study on Route 6 in Bethel.
Mhm.
So what we were trying to do is reduce curb cuts, and
Yeah.
that's very hard to do.
Yeah.
But over time, the planning board or P and Z or zoning, whoever controls site plan, you can ask or you can even require that at least the easement is there, so that if a new guy comes in on the next property,
Mhm.
there's the opportunity for both to have your ability to drive from one parking area to another. That we find is advantageous.
Yeah,
We've done that in Wilton.
okay,
And actually, we're looking at that right now in Granby Center to get interconnected parking lots.
exactly.
Usually that's okay. Sometimes, and look, if the owner, the owner objects, they don't wanna do it, that's different. But many times they see an advantage to it. You can get a safer exit sometimes.
Yeah.
Say the lights.
I mean,
yeah,
for
it says,
example, the
yeah.
Starbucks, it would be great if the guy next door who just put the urgent care in could have cut through and shared that instead of having a curb cut on the federal road.
Yeah,
He can't take a left, he's gonna only take a right.
right, and that's where it comes in handy.
Yeah,
That's where access management would really, it takes time because, you can implement it where you have site plan control. And you've got
Yeah.
site plan control on this. So over time, you can get those ability to interconnect where at least they can, it forces them to think about it.
Yeah.
And in some instances, they'll say, oh, this is an advantage to us.
Mhm.
They'll do it. Others, they might have, I think the liability issue, has someone said to you that, they don't know who's liable? Or,
yeah, pretty much. They don't want someone else's customer driving across their property to go to their store, and what if they, they're worried about that liability. It might be an unjustified concern, but in their mind, it's enough to say, no, I don't wanna do that,
or that was an excuse for not doing it.
or that.
Yeah.
Well,
We haven't
the
heard that
multiple
too much.
owners, I mean, I think that's a little of a bit of a rarity too, because with some of our lots have multiple owners of the buildings.
Oh.
On the, yes,
Commercial co-op, I think.
yes.
Yeah.
So I think that's where some of the concern comes.
I'd press them
Yeah.
on, well, this not, no, we're getting into details, but
In
I'd
lease.
press them a little bit on that,
Yeah,
because in a way, if they hit someone or that type of thing, someone's, I don't see the liability for the owner.
Yeah.
I see the liability for the driver.
yeah.
But I'm not sure the
So
property owner.
whatever we can do to solve that,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
and create more parking.
Yeah.
Are parking like minimums set too high, or is there seas of parking on Federal Road, or is it possible to
No,
find
see,
parking?
there's, some places have gone without any parking minimums, like in the West Coast. But people still need their cars around here, so it's a lack of enough parking. So if
Yeah,
you
it's
go
a
to
lack of-
Brookfield
yeah.
Village, sometimes you go in for lunch, and you'd be hard pressed to, find parking. They even have, painted some of the green to say, oh, this is just for patrons of the business, none of you
Yeah.
people who live here.
Yeah, no, we found that.
That's probably gonna get worse too, right?
Yeah,
I mean, as it
yeah.
is right now,
Yeah.
right, we think there's gonna be more cars, right?
Yeah, and we think
Right.
the town, the town wants to find a place for
Yeah.
a
Municipal
parking lot,
parking
municipal
lot.
parking lot, or a garage, I mean.
Yeah. Well, we do find that sometimes as a reaction, what happens
By your time, yeah.
in the growth of some cities is where you didn't have those minimums and there was not enough parking over time, the municipality's faced with trying to build a parking structure or parking lot.
Mhm.
So it has some unintended consequences. And if you're already a little short of parking, we shouldn't recommend changing any minimums then.
No,
We're not like some communities that are very overparked, where
Yeah,
they have
yeah.
large empty lots
Yeah.
required for like commercial where
Yeah.
it's not.
Like I was just at a conference where someone said, well, oh geez, why don't we, look at what Hartford, Connecticut has done. Well, I happen to know Hartford pretty well. Hartford's lost 50,000 people in the last 40 years. If you've lost that many and you've lost workers downtown, of course you have excess parking. So, in Hartford's case, you can abolish parking minimums, except in certain areas. Because Hartford is now finding, with UConn moving back in to downtown, oh wow, we don't have enough parking in this location.
I just spent an hour in a parking lot in Hartford last night, so.
Oh, did you?
Yeah,
Oh.
so it's terrible.
Yeah, so,
Fine.
yeah, if you have some parking issues now, I
Yeah.
would not change any of your minimums.
Meeting after the meeting.
Okay,
Yeah.
and then, I'll just keep
Overtime.
moving. Stormwater drainage, we will talk to like DPW and our, engineers will talk about
Kind
this,
of.
but I just wanted to quickly ask if the ground coverage standards, and drainage requirements in the zoning are adequate, if they need to be,
Timely?
Well, I do know every plan that comes in front has a stormwater plan.
Sure.
And they always tend to improve the runoff from the property when they put these new infiltration systems in.
Yeah, right.
So, I mean, with those systems, pervious coverage, I don't think we have a problem,
have the
because it always
MS4.
goes underground anyway.
I mean, we're trying to, we have, there's the MS4
The
requirements.
MS4
the
requirements
that
control
go-
this.
Yeah.
Control
Yeah.
the majority of it
Yeah,
in
you got
check.
control already on this, I think.
As far as stormwater management, we are actually, I'm laughing because you're bringing this up, and I just emailed you today saying to be compliant with the 2024 stormwater management, CT storm, management plan, that have been updated since 2004, just to,
Okay.
you don't wanna read the 600, 700 page
No, I
document
want you
that
to
that is.
summarize it for me.
Well, we'll have also Ty and Bond's gonna look at stormwater
Have them
drainage, but
That would be even better, I like that idea.
Yeah.
Getting into housing a little bit, so there's two like housing zones that aren't on this map. The IHZ, the incentive housing zone, which was eliminated. And then you also had this rental housing opportunity workforce zone that was only had applications 2016 to 2021. I was just wondering what the outcome of those zones was, and a little bit of background, just so I can write up that
Oh,
history.
well, there's a couple incentive housing applications being built right now. That's how long it took. Took
oh, okay,
many, many years. I mean, COVID slowed things down.
yeah,
And the funny thing about the ROW, whatever, that building is now being demoed, and I don't, and
Oh.
that was approved
When was that?
2000, was that 2018 too? 777,
Oh,
a long time ago.
oh, yeah.
And that was also a settlement. It was an 830G, but it came in
830G.
under that.
so it's now being demoed.
It's now
It is
being
down.
demoed.
It's
It is
down there.
down.
Well, it's
They're
down,
picking
but
it up.
there's so
Down.
much to, yeah, so I don't have confidence that that will move quickly.
Well, I saw one truck out there.
No, I
Why
mean,
did they do
after
that? Oh,
the
you
demo.
mean after that? Oh,
After the
yeah.
demo,
Well,
because
what's
there
the
was,
moratorium? What's gonna happen?
oh, that's right. No, they already approved.
They have sewer?
The one that they're talking about, are you sure
That-
that's 777? Because
Yeah.
you're talking about Kids Castle?
Yeah. I don't know if.
And the red building on the right is also part of it too.
Okay.
It hasn't been demoed.
That's an older development,
Oh, okay.
that's far older than 20.
Okay.
So they're-
They might have been demoing the building to build the incentive housing, is that?
The RH,
yeah,
ROW.
so-
Okay.
That's, I know,
I
it
thought
came
you
across
meant they
that they were
built a
building, they were
housing in there,
demoing
yeah.
Oh, no, they,
housing from 2018.
no,
That's why I was trying to
they're
clarify.
demoing a commercial building that's been sitting vacant
Vacant.
for a couple of years.
And was on our blade list.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and that's
Okay.
probably why the demo actually happened from
So
the
is
plane.
the zone kind of working then, or
We don't know.
You don't.
until-
It doesn't.
Until
Time will tell.
you're not?
time will tell if
Okay,
they
yeah.
finally build it.
But we
Yeah,
also have the-
okay.
Okay, so that was the
moratorium.
rental housing opportunity workforce zone development?
That's
That was
the
just
one,
that
that's what
one?
I'm talking
Can you
about.
just tell me where on the map
Oh,
that
where it is?
Yeah.
That is,
So you know where this
It's in the
is.
lower part of the TCD, right?
yeah, where's the Still River? I will circle it. I'll use
Yeah, if
this
you could
fabulous
circle it, that'd
pen
be
here.
great.
Yeah, that's why. I
It
made
is
these
mapped, in
maps.
other words, yeah.
Yeah, do you need help finding it or, okay.
Yeah.
It's very, okay, good, yeah.
He's familiar with the zoning map, right?
I hope so.
You see that red building is on the same lot as
The red building is in the same
zoning district.
Oh, okay.
Same, well, it's kind of the same line, it's all owned by the same people, as part of the same plan. So that brand new red building has
Right.
never been
Never
used.
been used.
Never been
It's gonna
used.
be knocked down
Really?
No.
as part of the
That's
whole
terrible.
thing, and then the Renaissance is going up.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
But I don't have too much confidence that the Renaissance will be built in very fast, because they have money problems and stuff.
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I mean, it took them this long just to demo it.
Anything else on that, or can we go to single
Yeah,
family?
we can go to the
Yeah.
single
Yeah.
family. So the first question is just about ADU regulations, so accessory dwelling, units. Does everyone know what those are? Okay.
Your in-law.
I
Your
wrote
former
your
in-law
in-law
housing and your
in-law
former in-law
apartment.
apartments.
It's interesting because we've gotten a lot more applications for ADUs in, say, the last couple of years than before that.
Yeah.
So that's working. And a lot of times it's for family members.
Yeah.
Once in a while it's for someone who's non-related, but for the most part.
Caregivers
Can't
or
can't
for-
afford anything on their own, right? So
Yeah,
that makes
yeah.
sense.
And, you know, you could also have them deeded affordable, but nobody's done that. But
And
I
almost
would,
nobody's done it in any other Connecticut town
yeah,
either.
I would question, I guess I should ask this question when they come up, and we have another one coming. Again, how much are they charging? Because it might meet the requirements, not that we can count it, but it'd be nice if we could.
Yeah. Most homeowners don't want it deeded, but what happens is you sell, what happens to the ADU?
Yeah.
What happens to it? And create a cloud over your closing on a sale. So we've gotten a lot of
And they're permanent.
blowback from, I would say, against the state regulation on this. The state won't count ADUs as affordable units unless they're
Deeded,
Deeded.
yeah.
deeded.
Mhm.
And no one
Um,
wants to do that.
And we opted out of
Yeah.
dirt, because we already had our own.
Right.
And a bunch of other, the housing things, because we already had things in place. We had
Regulations for it.
affordable housing,
Right.
830G sections and stuff like that.
But it sounds like you have the ADUs are pretty
Yeah.
doing well. There's
Yeah.
a lot of.
They're very
Yeah.
Do you
popular.
know
Very
how many
popular.
there are, or would you be
I
able
could get
to?
that to you.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
can get that to you. I think I have it. I
Well, that's
wanna
good to
say
hear.
there's-
Because
I mean,
it
there's
does
some-
provide
Was it some of
housing
the
that's.
data that was collected?
I know I
Yeah.
have a list. I just can't think of what, I'm afraid
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Do
give
you
you
have the
either.
list of the
yeah.
illegal ones?
Well,
I
I
thought I
can
was
give
gonna
you
ask.
the ones that are
Both the
permanent.
legal and.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
I can give you the permanent ones.
Yeah.
They are allowed by special exception, special permit, so it does go
Yeah.
through the whole public hearing
Yeah,
process.
Yeah.
right.
As opposed to as of right, which is what the state wanted.
Yeah.
Has there been like any opposition to
Yes.
them, or?
Yes, sometimes, you know, someone wants to put an ADU in above a garage that happens to be quite large. And then it happens to be the third residence because they had a second one that was grandfathered in, so only in situations
Yeah,
like
no,
that.
yeah.
Big family.
Yeah,
Okay.
We also allow carriage houses,
guest house.
guest house,
A
sorry.
guest house does
I
not
have a kitchen.
So
Okay,
it's
good.
just for guests,
Okay.
paying guests.
All right.
And the other two are just kind of things we hear in other places. Is the size of single-family homes appropriate? Are people building new, like giant McMansions that take up the whole lot? Is that something you're interested in controlling? And the other one is just about, is there any other areas along the Seward area where you could maybe get some additional like two-family homes or houses or anything like that?
Well, there's certain plans in place that have been approved before a moratorium for multifamily development, which is 3 units or more. So duplexes, I don't know how well we control those. Not too many people put
We
them.
don't have,
There's,
don't-
I don't,
they're
the
really- they
regs
don't
don't
have-
speak to two-family.
we
Yeah.
do,
Yeah.
in the residential zoning district section.
Well, it
don't
doesn't
have
allow
my-
you wanna-
duplexes.
Here's the code if you want to try to
I'm
find
like, I know, I should have brought my binder tonight. I apologize.
I think that some of these highlighted
the
areas,
areas.
the brighter yellow on the land use map, might have some kind of condo, townhouse
Mhm.
developments or
Oh, yeah, there's a
two-family
number of those
Yeah.
around
Yeah,
town. For single family, I mean, we have setbacks that, you know, pretty much wouldn't use up the whole lot anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think those are appropriate for,
Appropriate,
you know,
and
yeah.
work fairly well.
And there's
yeah.
still,
Pretty
it's still
conservative
single-family
dimensional
homes going in.
standards.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
probably, I noticed a lot of it's, you got a lot of R40, R60, R80,
Yeah,
and they have probably the standards that work. Yeah.
and some of the R40s in town have been upzoned to R80 because of soil, you know, I guess
Because of
someone
soil.
went back and looked at the soil type for septic.
Yeah,
Cause I know I was upzoned, so now we're to a tighter reg, you know, instead of 30 feet, now it's 50 feet in setbacks.
yeah.
So that kind of
Oh, that's
constrains the house a
interesting.
little more.
So there might be some soil issues and.
Well, nobody came by and checked my soil.
Yeah, right, right.
Somehow
Yeah,
that
that's
changed.
in-
I don't know when that was, but I got notified. I'm like, what?
Okay.
We don't allow sewering generally outside of the main corridor.
Right,
It's mainly for commercial and down that corridor. If a sewer line is going by a house that's failing septic and it's near like a still river, then they'll pull them in.
They'll pull them in, yeah, yeah, that's right, that's good. Well, actually, what you have is very typical in Connecticut, and, you know, sometimes the state plan is called the sewer avoidance plan. In other words-
Yeah, exactly.
In other words,
So
they're
it's-
encouraging, if you don't have sewer, if you have sewer first, they are encouraging density, the
Yeah,
state plan.
where the sewer is, yeah.
Where the sewer is. If you don't have it, they are okay, or have been traditionally okay with the R40, R60, R80, because they want the septics to work.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And, you know, our multifamily development is supposed to happen in the corridor where you have, you have transit, sewer, you know.
that's the idea, right.
And water and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Does,
It
is
seems
the
to make sense.
POCD gonna address the Candlewood Shores and that whole question
Sewer
about, you're
in
talking
it?
about sewers?
Yeah, it probably should, at least to,
It has to, I mean, just to address it as a
WPCA
long-term
yet, have we?
yeah.
Yeah,
concern.
I assume that will come up.
What will come up?
The sewering of Candlewood Shores, which is a
Candlewood Shores, yeah.
tax district.
That's what you were,
Yeah, I mean, it just,
Yeah.
it's a huge concern for, both for and against. I mean, the people who live there, they don't wanna spend the money. And the town clearly doesn't have an extra $150 million to sewer. You know, we have no place to send that capacity either, just minor details like that. But, it's something that probably should be addressed,
you know, we'll,
good, bad, or indifferent.
Yeah.
we should have Joe Canis look at that.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, he's looking at Candlewood Shores.
He's talking to the WPCA.
Yeah. No, I mean, we should mention.
I'll
Candlewood.
mention it to
Let's
him.
mention Candlewood Shores.
Because that relates to one of your sections for, the lake shore and
Yes, I know,
sustainability.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that could be,
Unfortunately,
what is the, are they on septics now at Candlewood Shores?
Correct.
And those septics are failing?
Yeah.
Correct.
And there's been like
Yeah.
Tiny
beach
lots.
closures.
Yeah, very tiny. It's
It's
our
very-
7,000
Bigger
square
houses.
foot.
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
are.
Growing
some-
houses.
It's probably the most
The
dense.
upgraded
Scrape off.
Yeah.
For residential.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like,
The R7?
yeah,
Into like
yeah,
the
it's
super
that little
septic.
like brown
Yeah,
pointed
no, I
lake.
noticed
Yeah.
the
It was New
Yeah.
Fairfield
Everything.
originally.
Not
Really?
if they're
Yeah.
gonna add a
Yeah, I can see
bathroom, I
why.
Yeah,
suppose,
it
but
was
it's
New
gotta
Fairfield,
pass the
I believe.
sanitation.
Have you looked at any sewer cost over there?
Yeah, we've had huge battles. I mean,
Studies over it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
there's been
documents
studies
out.
and
Yeah,
there's a
And
vocal
counter studies.
group that came out against the proposals.
I think
Yeah.
I sent him all those sewer
Yeah.
studies.
Good, okay.
Then, when you mentioned
How-
WPC,
are
you
those-
might want to talk to Dean.
So you have a sense of
Open the
cost.
road.
Okay.
Yeah, I threw out $150 million because I think that's roughly
Now
what
might be
the
going
number
forward as a
was.
sewer project.
I could be mistaken. I've heard 100, I've heard up to 150 million.
150 million?
There's a
Wait,
lot of
there's-
properties there. On small lots,
Yeah.
R7, so 7,000 square foot lots.
And
Yeah.
then discussion on the type of sewers too, and whether it would be a gravity system or whether or not it would, each house would have to have a pump
Okay,
depending
so
on the
this is
prices. So
studied,
there are
yeah.
studies that are,
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right, well, we'll defer to Ty and Bond on it a little bit, because that's what they do.
That's-
what-
that's
their
their
specialty.
wheelhouse.
That's their wheelhouse,
Yeah,
yeah.
and we will discuss
Yeah.
that more, but
Yeah.
just since we
Yeah.
only have
Yeah.
10 more minutes, I just wanna quickly,
Yeah.
the big questions here are just, are there any other zoning issues that, you can think of that should be addressed in the POCD? And then land use, like, are there vacant, underutilized lots or areas that we should be conserving, or earmarking for conservation purposes, or, so looking at this land use map and some of those vacancies, and also anything else in the code that's not working that comes to mind.
I know that, the property that, where the development pulled out, which is right along, in the TCD
TCD
along
district.
Federal Road. There was in the old POCD having some town,
Yeah.
thing down there. And so it would be nice to have that and the town to buy a property that happens to be vacant, and like that one there. But something similar to that. It was tough to do that, to put municipal things down in town center because it's all privately owned properties. So I think the town buying or owning some property down in the TCD that they can put something municipal down there, whether it's the community center or park or something. Parking, I don't think parking.
Yeah, that was my,
Yeah,
my
yeah,
impression when I
partner.
read that, I guess that original document that preceded the POCD, right, for the town center.
Yeah,
And it, as I read it, the thought was to have more open space than what actually has happened now.
Yeah.
You know,
And if
that
the town was to buy
over
it,
10 years ago,
you
12
could have the
years ago.
greenway, then
Yeah.
that, the sidewalk could go on that property,
Yes.
which is, it just got squashed.
yes,
And open space, I mean, maybe there was room for some parking there,
yeah.
but not, I don't think that's not gonna be the main parking for them.
No, but it would be, now the town has a presence in our downtown rather than at the municipal. There would be a connection between here and over there.
Right.
Danbury has a green, New Milford has a green, and Richfield has a park.
Yeah.
You gotta have somewhere where people can collect and,
Yeah.
and gather,
Yeah.
And we
Well,
don't
that's
really
a
have
good
that
point.
right now.
Yeah, and so I think, I think people would like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that was in the original one too.
Yes.
Maybe it's not gonna be a library or a community center, but it could be something.
Could just be a park.
Could be a park, yeah.
Yeah,
I
'cause
might-
like,
in that area,
I'm
we
always
might
trim
have a
space,
park.
I'm like, hey, War Memorial,
Yeah.
building,
Our-
put
Yeah.
that somewhere.
Our Heron
Or a
Park?
central green,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
a green.
Yeah.
I don't know if you
So
could get a
we-
question on the survey
Mm-hmm.
for something like
Yeah.
You
that.
know, maybe that would be good to ask
Yeah.
on the survey.
Yeah.
I mean, I have no
Because then
idea what
how
the price of
would
that
you
property
phrase-
is.
Yeah, it implies, the town ponying
What
up
would
the
you
money.
like the town?
It's got a little wetlands on it, so the price just went down a little.
Priorities.
There's a moratorium on multi-unit development of the
Land
town.
use.
Land use and
The owner
Use
has
of
had trouble
undeveloped
selling.
land in Four Corners.
Do you have any taxes?
Maybe. Yeah, that
Yes.
could work.
Okay, even,
Yeah, repeat that, Emily, let's try to get it.
Priorities for the use of undeveloped land in the Four Corners, and then we could have options that are like town square, indoor, community space.
Facilities I know there's also like discussions with the community center. Have you met with the ad hoc or not yet?
We're gonna.
Tomorrow.
Oh, that's the
yeah,
other
Yeah.
tomorrow.
That's the tomorrow one.
I probably.
But what I'm
sit in on
hearing
that
is
one.
partly
Hopefully I'll
there,
have
if I
voice.
heard your
Yeah.
comments,
You're gonna be able to come? Oh.
Emily, if I heard your comments, we wanna give as a choice a green, a town green.
Yes,
Mhm.
town green.
Cause I think that's something important that you might not
Mhm.
have, yeah.
I mean, you've got the little pocket park, but it would be nice to
That's
have.
it, that's,
Yeah.
that's your town green.
Yeah,
But then you
Quite-
also said,
Next state
spacious.
property, right?
at least it's next to the Dunkin' Donuts.
No.
yeah,
With
and
the heron?
I thought you
Yeah,
also
Heron
said
Park.
too,
Yeah,
as a
sorry.
choice.
yeah,
You
it's our
said-
market part.
You agreed with Scott on the town green, but you also said some parking? Did someone say some?
I said some parking just because, I mean, if you're gonna have anything there, you might need parking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yep.
Or even, because that is.
It's not all
a very
wetlands.
part- No,
Yeah,
it's
it's
not
not-
all
it's not all
wetlands.
wetlands.
I mean, they were gonna
Yeah.
build 50 units on it, so I mean,
Yeah.
it's,
Yes.
Yeah.
How big is
That's
this
what
area that you're
That's why I
talking
think
about?
it didn't go forward.
Oh, that's an excellent question. What was the size?
Maybe we can.
It was over 3 acres.
Touch base on which lot we're talking
Absolutely.
about later.
yeah.
It's,
I have a
Okay.
little comment you made, is that maybe a little carpet pattern?
Well, Scott, I think we've reached a good, it's this type of discussion that really helps us, and gets your input. So we'll put another question in, for instance, on the survey, and so we'll get you land use zoning chapter and before the next meeting. So-
Okay.
And our next meeting again, I think it's January 16th.
16.
Yeah, at 7,
Yeah,
so.
and it's a work in progress, so if there's something we didn't discuss on here that you have ideas about, just send an email to Laura and she'll forward it to us and,
Okay.
Great.
So that's generally the process, we'll gather together with a document, discuss it, and then we'll put it together, okay?
Yeah.
yeah, this one I
Okay.
think is just a little bit different since we have, some of the people who are on this committee are also like
Right.
know a lot about land use and zoning in particular. For some of the others, we'll come with a little bit more research done and tell you what we heard from all of these other stakeholders, and then discuss, what their priorities are, what,
And by the way, Laura will always know who we're meeting with, so if there's.
I think
think
Al
you all
know,
know.
you all know, it's on
think
the
you
list,
can all
it's
see
it's
Yeah,
a live
I do
document.
want to attend maybe a couple
You know what?
of those, so I
Feel
will,
free to.
I'll make I want more just to witness the process. and
It'd be,
everything,
easy to attend, and we welcome anybody to attend
Mhm.
anything you want. And
Zoom.
they're mostly by Zoom, except as we mentioned,
Mhm.
the
First
first selectman,
selectman.
that type of thing will be in person here.
Right.
And the sewer commission's on the list too?
They are on the list, but they haven't had their meeting yet.
Yeah.
sewer?
Yes.
They'll give you the lowdown.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
On
Yeah,
Kevin.
we'll have our engineer
Anna would let,
handle it.
That might be an understatement.
Yeah, but also, one thing Ty and Bond is good at is also, they know the funding sources and grants and that type of thing, because
Mhm.
it sounds to me like
It's-
this is a real tough issue without a grant, without some type of state help
Mhm.
or federal help. And there's a grant for that type of thing. I'm just guessing, but Ty and Bond should be able to,
You might want the Allison to Kennedy, who's the head of WPCA, in addition to the, just the chair.
yeah,
She's
yeah,
the staff point person
okay,
on
yeah,
that.
yeah,
I can get you her contact if I haven't already.
yeah. Yeah, because it seems to me that without those grants or without, well, I guess there needs to be a
I'm also thinking
kind of a
that
consensus.
Truthfully, that's every town surrounding the lake right now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
since the lake is technically owned by, is it Eversource that owns it? or
First
is it-
Light.
First
First
Light.
Light, okay. I wonder if there are any grants that would apply for them as well as a public utility that also owns
Hmm.
a natural resource essentially.
who owns it again?
First Light.
Because
No, no.
the lake was one of the first hydroelectric plants in the Northeast.
I see.
It's a hydro battery.
Mhm.
And
Takes
then-
water in from the Housatonic
Right,
River and sends
right.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, so, I don't know
First
that.
Light?
First Light?
First Light, Lighd?
Yes,
First
and
Light.
if you need a contact for them, I do have one.
Yeah,
Um,
okay. Who are they?
they're,
I know Eversource, which would, I'm glad Eversource doesn't own it, let's put it that way. They, getting anything out of Eversource has been tough, but maybe you've had better experiences, but who is First Light, are they?
First Light is actually the company that owns, I believe, the hydroelectric plant. They
Yeah,
also
oh,
own
okay.
the lake up into, depending on which lake we're talking about, because they're involved in both Lake Lillinola and
Okay.
Yeah,
Candlewood.
okay.
They own up to the 440 line on Candlewood Lake, and I believe 210 contour line on
I see.
Lake Lillinola. They have their own permitting process. They are federal. They go under, is it FERC, rules? So,
Okay. So
yes,
they're-
it's
are
very
they
interesting.
organized as a utility?
They are a utility.
Yeah, okay. Well, again, Ty and Bond will
They control the level of the lake too.
Yeah,
They
control
control
it,
the
so,
level of
yeah,
the lake.
yeah.
That's
Well,
one
they
of the
Control
reasons why they.
horizontal, they control vertical?
Control a lot. I know they are outside my jurisdiction.
Twilight Zone.
outside the jury, yeah.
Are you young, old enough for Twilight Zone?
Thank you, though. I appreciate that.
All right, what we got?
All right.
Thanks.
Did we cover everything we needed to cover today?
I think so, yeah. I
Okay.
think so, yeah, yep.
Good.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I guess we just,
Feel like
I mean,
we should
next
make
steps
something
are
quick
just
mention.
next meeting, I
Should
think, right?
Yeah, next meeting on the 16th.
16th?
And we'll get you land use and zoning check.
This
Okay.
issue we're gonna hit.
Yeah,
head
so,
on in the next
Anything
meeting.
else that we need to cover today? We're good?
I think so.
Turn to Linda, she's really good at this, yes. Second?
I'll
We'll
second.
do your-
And we do.
Unanimous. That one's always
Yeah, have a good
unanimous.
holiday, everybody.
Yes,
Yeah.
you too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Almost always unanimous. I think there was only one meeting I had that it wasn't unanimous.
Was it
Motion to-
unanimous?
Someone wanted to talk
Yes,
about-
motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, yeah.
They didn't want to adjourn.
No.
Oh, boy.
They probably have something
I've
to say.
never seen you get turned down on